Hello, dear ones, and greetings from All Saints Orthodox Church, South Fairfax Road, Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is risen. I hope and pray all of you are healthy. I wanted to talk briefly today about a subject that should be of importance to us, and it has to do with outward appearances. When we think about things that pertain to this, we might think of the saying, for example, you can't judge a book by its cover. When you are looking at books, for example, in the entryway to Barnes & Noble, when we used to have a Barnes & Noble, or Borders Books and Music, when we used to have a Borders Books and Music in this town, they always had a table set up with these books that had these fantastic covers on them. I don't know if you ever noticed that. And they're beautiful. They're designed to be eye-catching so that you want to buy them and take them home. And of course, you know, they're like $9.99. Seems like a great deal for a book. And then you get it home and you start to read it and you realize, gosh, there's a reason this thing was marked down on the clearance table in the entryway. It has a beautiful cover, but inside it's full of a bunch of fluff. Well, anyway. There also was a story recently on these, there's these shows, the traveling home show, I don't know what they're called. We don't have TV, I don't watch that stuff. But at one time, a couple of months ago, I was in a waiting room somewhere, and one of these appraisal shows came on, and some guy brought his watch in. It was a Rolex watch he had bought in the 70s, and he had paid like $350 for it, which was a lot of money back then. Wore it a handful of times, but just kind of kept it in a drawer. And it didn't look like much. I mean, it wasn't the prettiest watch in the world. And he wanted to go and find out how much it was worth. Maybe it's worth $1,000 now. He didn't know. Anyway, he takes it in. They look it over and they check the serial number and they check the this and they check the that. And they come to find out this watch is worth now $700,000. But looking at it, you never would have thought that. But that's what it's worth. So anyway, you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge the value of a watch by what it looks like. And likewise, you can't judge a man or a woman by their looks. It just doesn't work that way. That's not the way God works. And there's a great example of this. I talked yesterday about David and Goliath. I wanted to reverse just a little bit and go back to 1 Samuel chapter 16, where David is anointed king. And there's a beautiful thing that happens. The prophet Samuel is sent out to go and find Jesse and his sons and anoint one of his sons kings. You'll recall Jesse had 8 sons. And so Samuel gets there and he meets Jesse, and Jesse brings forth the first son, and he's huge and he's tall and strapping and this, beautiful man, a man's man. And Samuel says, surely the Lord's anointed stands before us. And God says this, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. What happens in that story then is Jesse presents his other six more of his sons, and all of them look impressive, but the Lord says, no, those are not the ones. Finally, David, the shepherd boy, is brought from the field and stands before Samuel, and the Lord says, this is the one. So, brothers and sisters, I just want to remind us to keep this in our heart, to remember that we can barely see the tip of the iceberg. When we look at people, when we observe them, when we interact with them a little bit, we see their appearance, the kind of car that they drive, or the house that they live in. Yeah, we can gain a little bit of knowledge of some of the details of this or that, but we really, we barely see anything of the core of the person. So let's do our best to see as God sees, not to focus on the outward appearance, but to truly do our best to get to know the heart of a man or a woman, to know them, and to respect and honor them as the image and likeness of God. Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen.